So what show number is this?
18, I think.
18, show number 18. Yes, we've got to work through it quickly because it has to be uploaded for today.
All right. I'm doing a rather extensive PowerPoint, and although this will refer to it, the PowerPoint is so detailed that you actually have to go look at it on our YouTube. And we will start off talking about some things I never wanted to talk about, but to a certain extent I am trapped by that circumstance of my life. And basically it is my first wife, as I've said many times, that she was the town harlot and of Lithgow, a small town out of Sydney, about 90 miles. And I knew her, what she looked like, where I had to go, where she would live, the type of person she is as a child, because although it's hard to believe from the modern standpoint, the Hindis are correct in the sense of present, past and future happens all at the same time. That's what prophecy is all about, because if you are making a prophecy of something, it is the vision of that person. Like John on the island of Patmos, he had a vision of Revelation, and that's what's going to happen. However, the Bible, being a satanic control, makes it appear holy when the book of Revelation, for example, is 99% of it is rubbish, because it is contrary to the Essene scriptures, which are the oldest religion. It goes back to the Vedas, and that goes back to Enoch. So the Great Pyramid is 7,000 years old or so, and it was built before the flood. And as you know, those of you who are familiar with our work, we had to go to the pyramid on a certain date. Now, although you might not understand it, I understand it. That's the whole point, and the devil understands it. So basically what the Bible has done is misdirected people, and now you've got 36,000 different denominations in the Protestant world, which is primarily caused by the Catholic Church, but the Catholic Church itself is the church of the earth because it is the one under most attack, and that's the one that was killing people, burning people at the stake, because they'd been infiltrated by the devil, and men in high places always seek to do evil. So wherever evil is, it'll go to the highest command points. So, for example, the Queen, Prince Philip, Charles. Charles is proud of being descended from Vlad the Impaler, for example. We've got all the generals in the working for the Pentagon, Australian government, same thing. Matter of fact, our Prime Minister, who is a Jesuit, is over there in sucking up to Obama. And it is relentless. So I had to marry this woman. The shop I met her in was a coffee shop after a dance. My brother led me there because he was from the Den of Iniquity. And he actually sat me down beside her. I wanted nothing to do with her because it was just a horrid memory of what has to happen. The shop in later years, I went back with a GPS and I measured the height above sea level, and it's 3168 feet to ground level, which is Lord Jesus Christ, which is rather ironic. And the distance from that shop to where she was raised was 11.626 kilometres. That's your width of the antechamber of the Great Pyramid. And all these things, I just know where to look because it's a memory. And it's a memory at night, Ash will verify this, that I have great difficulty sleeping. I have constant bad memories that haunt me. And I'll give you an example of one. Eileen and I, after Tracy was born in Port Alberni, when I was 8,880 days old, etc. I'd married Eileen when I was 11626 weeks old, 1162.6 weeks old, which is 22.28 years, which is the height of Mount Kosciuszko, the highest mountain in Australia, and it goes on and on and on. We were in Zambia, and I had bought a ticket in a lottery while waiting to go from Rhodesia into North Rhodesia, which is called Zambia, and waiting for a permit, and a friend of ours to pick us up at the Victoria Falls on the Zambezi River. And there was one space missing, and then the rest were filled in below that. So I took the space that was missing, and it ended up winning £1,000 in the lottery in Rhodesia. Now that £1,000 would buy a Jaguar car in those days. So what's a Jaguar car worth today? 130,000. So give you some idea what kind of money it was. And in order to get the money, I had to immigrate into Rhodesia because there was a Cold War on between Zambia and Rhodesia itself. Under white rule was Ian Smith, and a very nice man. And the country was being manipulated by the Americans and the British to put it into the hands of the blacks, which were incapable of running a tuck shop in a school, whereas they wanted to run all the industries, and they made a lot of money out of it, of course, America and England. But the idea is to cause as much havoc as you can in the world, because this is how the British operate, and they get the Americans to do the nasty bits. So I was working for a company there, 9-hour days, and I was away from the house. Or the caravan, for you Americans, a caravan in Africa is like a trailer. So I had this trailer I built and hauled with this Jaguar car I had down from Zambia into Rhodesia. I was in Salisbury, Rhodesia. So I was staying in a trailer park. Now a lot of people, youngsters in particular, on tour of Africa would come up from South Africa, go up through Rhodesia, and then go to Malawi or Kenya or somewhere like that in their trips. Well, this was a very, very convenient area for my wife at the time, because any young fellow that should go there should put the word on. Next thing, they're in the camper, in the trailer, and she'd be shagging them, all right? So this is how she was. And the neighbours in other trailers would tell me what was going on. And this particular day I come home, and my daughter, she's less than 2 years of age, she was tied to a tree. And Eileen was inside the camper, exhausted from shagging all day with all these young tourists that was going through. And I just lost it. Although I knew what she was doing, it was if you're in Africa, a python bloody snake can come out the bush and wrap around a kid and swallow it, right? So here's my daughter tied to a tree in the hot sun. So I said, that's it. I said, yeah, Sol, you're out of here. So she agreed that if I paid for her fare back to Australia, she would leave me with the child. So I thought, well, hell of a good idea. Because I could stay in Africa and I could hire a local woman, and she would come look after the baby, and I would do my work and so forth. So I go into a lawyer's, and we get the agreement drawn up. And while we're waiting for the agreement to be drawn up so we can sign it, we went into a small cafe, and there was a couple of young fellas in there, and they seen her, and I walked back in, and of course these young fellas had walked up to her, and I walk in, and being hot, she's wearing a low-cut top, and all this area of her chest would go motley pink when she was caught, and I'd seen it many times before. And these are some of the guys that she'd been in the sack with. So we moved back to Australia, and I've got a little girl I've got to take care of. There's no welfare in Australia at that time. And I went and see my mother, and I said, look, Anna and I gone our separate ways, and I've got this your granddaughter. And she would have nothing to do with me. She said that she was too old to be looking after little children. I said, look, all I want to do is get a job so I can work at night, and then I can take care of the baby during the day, right? So I went and seen this friend of mine, and Marius Kipranidis is a Greek fellow, and we'd been school friends together, and good mates. And he said he'd look after the baby for me because he had a shop, like a fish and chip shop, type of thing. So that was fine. That worked for a while. And I was working night shift, so I'd work all night, be awake, then I'd take the baby during the day, and of course I was getting no sleep. And this went on for quite a while. The baby would go over and see, I'd take her over to my sister-in-law's and give the baby to her, and Eileen would come there. This particular day, I go to pick the baby up and the baby's not there. So I'm tired, exhausted, hadn't been with any women, of course. The next thing, she puts a word on me and seduces me, right? Like, big mistake. So I felt like a dog afterwards. As it turned out, she tells me a little while later that she's pregnant. Now, the chances of me being the father was doubtful. However, the possibility it was, I said, okay, get back together and we go to Canada, go back to Canada.
Explain why you couldn't stay in Australia.
Well, because she'd had so many lovers, no matter where we went, there'd be some guy giving her the wink and she'd be giving her a nod back and forth. It was amazing. We're talking hundreds, not just a couple of guys down the street, right? Hundreds. And in my case, because of who I am, this is accelerated. No matter where we went, these guys would be showing up. It was extraordinary. So I thought, well, at least if I get back to Canada, there I can build a house and in a small town, and she can be semi-isolated. Because you can't have the type of thing she's doing in Africa. The child will be watching this, you see. So who knows whatever happened during the time I was there, whether the child was always tied up to a tree or sitting in the crib watching these lovers of this harlot and all the performance that he's putting on. So as much as it grieved me, and I still have nightmares over it, I thought the angels kept urging me to do what I got to do. So without going back to Canada, my third daughter would not have been born, because I got to a point where I was so distraught with what she was still up to that I thought the only thing I got out of this marriage was the children, to which I adored. And even though the second one might not have been mine, I thought, well, a little baby girl anyhow, what difference, you know? So the third child comes along, because I said to Eileen, I said, listen, either we have another child, or that's it, we're out of here. You and I are separated. Right? So I couldn't stand it any longer. I had enough money at that time where I could have done that. So between the third daughter and the first daughter, the houses I built in Canada, the distance between the two is 444.3 kilometres, which is how many times the word God is found. It's 444.3, so 4443 is how many times the word God is found in 3877 verses where the word God is found in the King James Bible, 1611 only. Since I've been revealing all this stuff, there's been a tremendous amount of changes to the Bibles. That's why Rupert Murdoch, who was a Jew, owns the NIV, for example. And every religion that pops up, that is, think they're better, like Jehovah's Witnesses, for example, they're better than the King James Bible, not realising that the King James Bible was put together by William Shakespeare, or rather the editing by William Shakespeare, Edward de Vere, his name was, the 17th Earl of Oxley, and King James, who was the first king anointed upon the rock of the scone, which is the ancient blessing rock or stone of destiny, that have been handed down from ancient times. You can read about it in Genesis 28:11. So, if the first daughter had not have been born in Port Alberni and I built a house, and the third daughter born in Port Alberni and I built a house, the distance between the two would not have been the same numbers as you'll find when you go into the Great Pyramid, which is the altar to the Lord, as I said, built by Enoch and his descendants prior to the flood. In it is the antechamber, 116.26 pyramid inches wide. So my first wife, 1162.6 weeks old when I married. And then my third wife, which is Michelle, that came many years later, 1997 onwards. The difference in age between the two was myself and her in days was the same number, 1162.6 days. And then my eldest daughter and her youngest stepdaughter, rather my stepdaughter, her youngest daughter, is 11.626 years. So there's your three parts of the antechamber of the Great Pyramid. Only one remains, and then the slots where the other ones were in this antechamber, which we went to, by the way, as you know, some of you know. And that's the day I had the 11 heart attacks, because they tried to kill me, because I already announced that I had to be on there on my mother's birthday, when she would have been 101 years old, had she lived, of course. And the stars were telling a story, and I can get into that and show you what that is later on the PowerPoint. Now, the second daughter, Charmaine, beautiful baby. I adored her, irregardless of the fact that I might not have been the father. She didn't look like me. I got blue eyes, and she doesn't. My first child and my last child, blue eyes. And there's many features about Charmaine, especially as she grew older, that she didn't look anything like me at all. So I thought, oh well, whatever. Loved her just the same. Now, it turns out, as I said before, had she not been born, we would not have gone back to Canada to avoid all these lovers that would pop up all over the place. I mean, I couldn't leave this woman alone for 5 minutes. You got no idea.
Tell about your business, the phone.
Oh, well, yes. Well, this came after we went back to Australia. The children had grown up somewhat. And I had a business. It was doing quite well. I was building a new house again. Because I had horses for the children and all the things that a father should do for the kids. So we ended up with 4 horses, and which out an adjustment which you got to pay for, and you know, veterinarian and all that kind of stuff, and horses, saddles and bridles, and a trailer to cart the horses around in. Blacksmith, all that, right? So this particular situation was expensive. And I found that I was getting less and less work. And although I'd spend $1,000 on advertising a month in the newspapers, I was getting no work. So after a while, the phone, when I was working because I had nothing to do, I was building machines in the garage, a double garage, which I had a lathe in there. I built machines, welding machines, so forth. And I was building these, what's called roll formers, for making gutters and making siding and all sorts of things like that for houses. But as I say, getting no work. So the phone would ring. Yeah, hello, yeah. Have you got any angle aluminium? No, I haven't. Sorry about that. Oh, okay. Because I was in the phone book, right? I was getting 2 or 3 phone calls a day. Do you have flat bar aluminium? Do you have this? Do you have that? All the stuff I don't have. So I started to think, wait a minute, something strange going on here. So when someone would ring, have you got any aluminium in angle? Yeah, heaps of it. How much do you want? Then it would go silent, right? So these are guys that she had been having an off with, right? So I hired a detective agency, Pilkington's. And this private detective came out and he said, well, we'll put a bug on the phone. Because I told him, I said, listen, I'm losing money hand over fist here. I've got lots of responsibilities, lots of things I've got to pay out, but advertising's just not working. So, also I used to get repeat business. I'd do a job, I always do good work, and I'd be recommended, so a lot of my work would come through recommendations, but I wasn't getting into those either. They all dried up. So as it turned out, he put a bug on the phone, and the phone had a 6-hour tape. So a couple of days later he comes back, as they do, and he checks out the tape. So he comes around to see me. He said, look, I've listened to things in my lifetime. He said, I've never heard such filth in my life as what your wife is doing with all these lovers she got. She is endless. She said, in one day she used up 6 hours of tape on the phone. I said, right, now we're into it now. Now, I fixed the phone up by putting a special phone in that she couldn't dial out on or dial in from because I got a new number and done all sorts of things which the detectives told me how to isolate it. For example, you could dial the phone and some numbers wouldn't dial up unless you have a key to open it. So let's say you was going to dial 9437824. Well, the 8 wouldn't show up or the 2 wouldn't show up on the phone. So I'd only dial out 6 numbers. So, not the 8. So this is the kind of things I had to go to stop her phoning out and then people phoning in. And also because of what was also happening at the time, and I was very, very tired because I'd work around the clock. If I wasn't working in the house, I'd be working on the new house I was building. And I come in one day and this fellow I knew from the horses out at where he had 3 daughters and my 3 daughters used to ride the horses together at a farm, a distant farm. And he said, you better look in to see what Tracy's doing. This is the oldest daughter. I said, why? So he said that she's going out with this guy that's just been arrested, and he was the leader of 6 guys that pack raped a woman in a national park, which wasn't too far from us. It's a lovely park actually, but didn't have any pleasant memories for me. And what happened was this woman had a small van, and she was sleeping in it overnight when these 6 arseholes got drunk, come across her, smashed the window, dragged her out and raped her all night. She eventually managed to get away and ran off in the bush, and so the next day the rangers found her, or she found them, and the 6 guys are arrested. So this is Tony, he tells me this. And Tracy was now, after all this, lined up with this guy, and that was the boyfriend. And Tracy was a kid that you couldn't do anything about in the sense of, for example, she a beautiful girl, blonde, blue-eyed, lovely suntan, lovely skin, and she'd just wrap a sheet around and put a safety pin in it and walk down the bloody streets like she's half naked. It was unreal. So this is not coming from me, I can assure you. So I drive up the driveway, and Eileen, she's in the middle of the driveway doing something or other. And as I pulled in, I got out the truck and I walked up her. And I said to her, do you know about this guy that Tracy's going out with, this guy that's been out on bail, charged with pack raping a woman? She said, yeah. And I said, why the hell didn't you tell me so I could do something about it? And then she said something which I still have nightmares over. She said, you're such a good man, you'll do anything for anybody. I wanted to get even. So I thought, that's it. So We drew up an agreement. I said, now you can go out, do what you like, whatever. Go out 3 nights a week, whatever. Be honest about it, I don't care, and I'll go out and get myself a girlfriend as well. That's it. So we agreed to that. I said, we'll stay together in the house, so I'll keep on paying for everything. You don't interfere with it, let me earn some money so we can keep your lifestyle. I said, but that's it. I said, I can't have anything more to do with him. Can't put up with it anymore. So I told the kids, Charmaine was upset. However, I said, look, I'm still here, but your mother, she wants to go and do what she likes. I didn't tell her what she was doing, tell the kids what she was doing. I just kept it as it was. So that was fine for a while. I'd go out with my mates, Byron his name was, I went to school with him, and he had just got divorced. And we'd go out playing snooker or pool or something like that. I wasn't really interested in chasing women. In my lifetime, I didn't have a lot of luck with women, so I wasn't going to be looking for one of those again. So, as it turned out, he wants to join Parents Without Partners, which is fine. I don't recommend it because the people who go to Parents Without Partners are all divorced and got kids. They've either caused a divorce or they've been divorced and they're damaged goods. So, from that point of view, it's not a good idea. I don't recommend it. Anyhow, I go with him this night to what's called the Bankstown RSL, Returned Soldiers League, and they've got a big hall there. And the Returned Soldiers Leagues are all over Australia. They're like mini Las Vegas, gambling and slot machines and all that kind of stuff. So I walk in and Byron was beside me, and we got about 3 feet into the door, and the angel spoke to me and said, marry that one. I said, what? And I looked up. Marry that one. Same voice I've heard many times in my lifetime, which has always got me into trouble. But as it turns out, it was divine things that had to be done. So I thought, no bloody way. Not doing it. Well, Byron is sort of a handsome young fella, and he I want to say young, 45. And he was very nearsighted and didn't want to wear glasses because it didn't look cool, right? So he'd say, what's that one like over there? I said, oh, she's a good sort, yeah, okay. So off you go, and as he got closer, he could sort of view the woman up close, and she looked all right, so then he started dancing. Well, he shows up with that night, and turns out she was a local harlot from a little place called Penrith, but he was a man that was into all sorts of obscenities, and which I later found out about. Catholic boy. And who's the friend of this woman that he says, oh, we've got to go sit at the same table with this woman, right, that he'd been dancing with. So I said, oh, okay, reluctantly. And I walk over there, and there's this woman sitting there, and he's sitting with her, and I sit down beside him. And next thing, this woman, the angel said to me, marry that one. She shows up, and she's sitting at the bloody same table. So I thought, oh, shit. Well, next thing, he's arranging 4 of us to go out on a date, go for Chinese meal, this type of thing. Well, I didn't want to go, right? Everything I tried to avoid, there she was. It was extraordinary. So, as it turned out over time, she becomes my second wife. Now, she's having a baby. So, we go to this lovely man, obstetrician, and he assured her and myself that he'll be there right through the whole thing, no problem, right? So, when the baby has got a week to go, he gets called away and is replaced by a fellow, like I think they call him a locum, but he'd come down 600 miles from a place called Tweed Heads, where my uncle, who had told me all about the Golightly family and how he should have been king and what's got a bullshit. He's a real arsehole, this guy, my uncle. And this sort of got me reinterested in the royal line of the family because the Marshalls were also of the same king. So this doctor shows up. We go in, and my wife in the last 7 days was feeling sick, morning sickness. So we go, and this doctor, he's looking at me, and he leans back, this monster, and he leans back into the shadows, and he's looking at me, right? I thought, this guy's got a demon, right? So I can sense this sort of thing, right? So he starts to write a prescription out for Pauline. I said, don't take these pills, I'm telling you, this is bad news. She took the pills and the baby died. That's probably one of the most heart-wrenching things I've ever experienced. I wouldn't, it's unexplainable. And my whole chest froze in a crushed, almost like a heart attack. As it turns out, that baby, 8 weeks pass, and by that time I'm with Michelle, who was the reincarnated Mary Magdalene in Victoria, Melbourne, and the house that she had inherited from her mother lived at 666 Main Road, Eltham, right? And this woman, straight out of hell, you got no idea. However, I'd never met her, but I knew of what I was told about her by Michelle, the things she used to do. The house that Michelle had inherited was a small, it wasn't really a house, it was a separate unit, if you like, condominium. And it was pretty well run down. And I go over there this particular night after meeting her at a dance, where what happened was I went to Rembrandt's, which was a dinner club for over 29s, right, with my brother. Again, not to meet people. My brother wanted to go because he wanted to meet a woman. And he ended up finding a woman, and he didn't go no more, but I started going there because she could get a meal and listen to the music, very pleasant. And then after about 9 o'clock or so, the youngsters would start showing up, and then the rock music would start, and I'd leave. Right? Well, Michelle used to go there all the time. She dressed very well. Was an excellent ballroom dancer. And I thought, I'm not going to get sucked in again. As it turns out, I'm sitting there on the edge of the dance floor, and she used to dance with 2 or 3 very good ballroom dancers, mates, friends. She always came alone, always went home alone. So she looked like a decent sort of a lady. And I'm sitting there, all of a sudden I'm lifted up out of my seat as the dance had stopped between numbers, and up behind her, grabbed her by the shoulders, turned her around and sort of had her in the headlock and said, next dance. She said, yeah. Swung her back again. I thought it was pretty cool as shit actually, but as it turned out, we were dancing from then on. We got on very well. But so the first night I actually went out to dance, we went to see Jurassic Park, of all things. And I had this little Volkswagen car and had a flat tyre. No jack, but I had the thing for taking the tyre off. So I undone the bolts on it, and then I lifted the car up, and she slid the wheel onto the nuts, and then I put the nuts back on to the screws, the bolts. So she was quite impressed by that. Not many people can lift vehicles. So I take her home, and they're sitting in this rundown condo, and her daughter comes in. Her daughter's a big girl, 5 feet 10 inches or so. So she walks up to her mother, and just to belittle her mother, she started poking her on the head like that with a finger. Well, my instinct was to knock her out. But at that point, I thought, this poor woman, she's got to put up with this arsehole. So I become interested in that because of that fact. And as it turns out, we end up, I got sick one day, and I couldn't move. So I laid on the couch, and of course the daughter lived there, you see. And 3 days I was like that. Well, as it turned out, she said to me, why not stay? because I did have a protection of her from this daughter, this monster. Now, as the monster turns out to be born on the 20th of December in Geelong, Australia, and the sunrise to sunset was 888 minutes, you got the Jesus thing happening again. And also Michelle, when I did all the numbers on it, because this is what I do, she was 1162.6 days younger than I, and that's your antechamber number of the Great Pyramid. But she turns out to be, this Rhiannon, turns out to be 11.626 years younger than my eldest daughter. So I can see the pattern, right? So this is what how it kicked on from there, which is fine. Now, as it turns out, she has a daughter, and Rhiannon has a daughter, and she says to me, because she used to read my writings, like I'd watch her sometimes and through the window, and she'd be in there reading my stuff, and she thought I couldn't see it. And she said to me, if you're Christ, tell me people want lotto numbers or something like that. If you're Christ, tell me when the baby's going to be born. And I said, yeah, I'll do that. And I said, she'll be born at 8:53 p.m. on the 11th of August, 2001. Well, on that date, she shows up because she, by that time, moved out with her de facto. And she said to me, it's 11th, the baby's not here. So I said to her, this is about 4 o'clock now, isn't it? I said, the day ain't over yet. So they get in the car and they're driving back out to where they live on a farm, and her water broke. And she goes into the hospital and has a baby at 8:53. So Jade, the de facto, he looks at her and they're looking at her little baby and lovey. He said, oh shit, he's right. Exactly on time. Right? So you would have thought that would have made a bit of difference to the family when I could do that sort of thing. But no. As it turned out, Rhiannon is not a motherly type, she's a dictator, and she wanted to go to work. Well, I wasn't working at the time, and I was doing a lot of studies and so forth, as you might expect. So I looked after the baby, and basically, as a little baby girl, I was the perfect man for the child because she was replacing what I had lost with my own children, and I had time to educate her and develop her little personality into the right, correct direction. And a very close relationship because she called me Parky. Now the reason they call me Parky is that when I'd go from their house to the park, it was to go past where I lived with Michelle. So she could only, when they're driving that way, we're going to Parky, to the park. And as it turns out, when she was dropping the baby off to go to work, we're going to Parky's. That's what your little mind started to, when she learned to talk, right? So they call me Parky to this day. The next baby to come along was Trinity. Now the first baby, Alaska, she was born when my mother, Daphne, had she been alive, would have been 88.8 years old. And the date she was born on is the 222nd day of the year. I weigh 222 pounds, and there's 222 truths in the Bible, 222 wisdoms, etc. And the word is Nazarene, I think. No, Alexandria. Wisdom. So, the next baby is coming along. So she says to me, if you're Christ, you can tell me what date this baby's going to be born on. I said, yeah, I can. But I ain't going to. She said, oh, because you can't. I said, oh yeah, I know exactly when that baby's going to be born. Right. Turns out it was 888 weeks. Also, after I married Pauline. And also, when I was 69 years of age, she was 88.8 years old. 8.88 years old. She is the mother, Mary, reincarnate. Because my task in this life, and why would I live through this shithole, was to show the intelligent, spiritually pure people of the world, and there ain't that many, I can assure you, that Christ is back in hell with you. Because that's the Apostles' Creed, that on the third day he raises again from hell. Well, this is hell is what it is. The crucifixion is 3 hours, hanging on a cross is nothing. 70 years of torment, of all these kind of things that I've lived through, is what it's all about. So, we get back to Charmaine. And I did the numbers on her the other day.
You haven't... You'd said to me at other times that anything that you did on Charmaine meant nothing. It was nothing. So you knew that she wasn't yours.
Yeah.
Until a conversation came up and something stuck in your craw and you started...
We had read the book of Revelation of the Essenes. Now I can be blinded to things too. Don't worry about that. But how I operate is... this here is, for example, we just printed it off, and basically the Essene Revelation talks about the angels of the earth and the angels of heaven. And I'll give an example. And I opened the fifth seal, and I saw and beheld the angel of light. Between her lips flowed the holy alliance between God and man. And she knelt over the earth and gave to man the gift of creation. So man can create. This is one of the things that, as Jesus, being an Essene, I had to go to the Jews, because the Jews is where the evil is going to accumulate, right? And being an Essene is, what I taught them was that their Bible, the Holy Torah, that they call, is a load of crap, right? So this didn't go over too well with the high priest, as you might understand. But I heard only the harsh discord of sadness and discontent, and he lifted up his sword and cut off the heads of the singers, and then it says, this is what John says, and I turned my face away in shame. So that is the overbearing words of shame that comes out of the visions that John saw. It's got nothing to do with the 144,000 Jew virgins, because that's written in by the Jews, right? So the people will look towards the Jews as being the chosen race, and they're going to be the holy people, and blah, blah, blah. So it's going to be the preaching of the 144,000 Jews that's going to convince the world, right? And so on. Well, that's a load of crap, right? The Jews are the last people. So we get down to this one here. And Ash can tell you how it all come about, but I'll read it. And I opened the third seal. Remember, third day rose again from the dead. So the synchronicity of numbers, I'd read that and I'd see it in a different way that you would read it because of my personal life experiences. And I opened the third seal, and I saw and beheld the angel of the sun. And between her lips flowed the light of life. The light comes from the sun. And she knelt over the earth and gave to man the fires of power, and the strength of the sun entered the heart of man, nuclear fusion. And he took the power and made with it a false sun, nuclear reactors. And he spread the fire of destruction, burning the forest, Fukushima, laying waste the green valleys, leaving only charred bones of his brothers, Nagasaki and Hiroshima. See what I'm saying? So, we'd read this before, of course, but I was kind of fixated on it, and this is what happens. And after a day of thought, I then looked into, again, because I wanted to prove that Charmaine was my child for her sake, because all this is going to come out. The way her mother behaved, etc. It's got to come out. As it turns out, the youngest child, who is 2.127 years younger than Rhiannon, the child of my stepdaughter, the mother of Trinity in Alaska, the daughter of Michelle, who was Mary Magdalene. And that number in days is 777 days. That's the age Lamech was in his lifetime. And of course the 777 number is the word, how many times the word city is found. And of course it ends up in the book of Revelation, which is fine. Because there are parts of the Bible that they sort of, the Jews, when they altered the Bible, they have to leave some of it in to make it look good, right? So the holy city. But the numbers was arranged by William Shakespeare, Edward de Vere, his real name, the 17th Earl of Oxley, and James, who was the anointed King of Scotland. And remember, if you know anything about Scottish history, the English regarded Scotsmen as being less than a dog. That's the Talmud influence, you see, because the English had been heavily influenced by the Talmud. So we got 777 days. So I thought, all right. So I'll do the English gematria. And that, what English gematria is you take each word, and I'll read the first part, A-N-D, and, right? So that's a 1, an N is a 14, a D is a 4. So you add that together. I, which is a 9. Opened, which is O-P-E-N-E-D. So that's a 15, a 16, a 5, a 14, a 5, and a 4. You add that together. So you do the whole of that verse, and it comes out with the number 3907. Now only recently, within the last year or so, had I been able to get hold of a program which was actually an astrology program to start with, and it developed into an astronomy program. Now, astrology, don't look at it because it's stupid. It only applies to myself. And it's the Hindi astrology that you've got to look at when you're studying me, because you're looking at the heavens, and heaven is the creator, so that's me. Right. Come into hell to get you all out. So with it you can do things like measure from Jupiter to Earth on any given day. And for example, when I was born, the measurement from Jupiter, why Jupiter? Well, it's 88,800 miles across. That's your Jesus number in Greek gematria. And Matthew 1:23 has a value of 8880. That's the age I was when my daughter was born in Port Alberni. The sunrise to sunset was 888 minutes. When she was conceived on the 29th of July, Jupiter was overhead for 888 minutes. Catch me? So with this particular program being advanced in being able to measure things precisely, you can measure from Jupiter. Now the stars that were seen by the ancients wasn't Neptune, you couldn't see it, wasn't Pluto, you couldn't see that, and Uranus couldn't see that. All you could see was from Saturn in. And Mercury could only be seen at very early in the morning. So even that was difficult for trained astrologers. We're not talking astronomers here, we're talking astrologers. And they could read these things and predict the date of the Star of Bethlehem, because the constellations where these planets would line up in conjunctions, or a solar eclipse of the moon, all this kind of thing, was all calculated by the ancient astrologers. And so I did those verses that I just read. That's the third one. And I opened the seal, and I saw, and behold, the angel was stand between. Okay, so this is applying to now, because it's talking about the sun, it's talking about nuclear fusion, it's talking about how man has taken it over, and it's talking about the Jews. It's not talking about Chinamen, it's not talking about Japanese, it's talking about the Jews. right? And the Jews become the Zionists. So the Jews broke away from, and they're all Khazars. There's very, very few Jews actually still in existence because Khazaria had taken over, and they were Mongols. They weren't nothing to do with Judaism at all. So most Jews that's in Israel today are not Jews, nor were they related to any of the ancestors that they call themselves Jews. So they've been gathered there to be murdered. And I can't get rid of them because they're all too stupid, right? Where's it? Oh, here we go. Before we get back to that, this is 2 pieces of paper I just printed out.
For 8 minutes.
So we've got 8 minutes left. The population per square mile is 717 people per square mile in Israel, and the highest mountain is 3963 feet. Its highest point is Har Meron, 1208 metres or 3963. 3963 is Patmos, where the island of Patmos, where it is also the radius of the earth in miles, and that is where John had the vision of what's going to happen to Israel. Right? There it is there. And when the population reached 717, that word is Armageddon. Now, the Essene Revelation had a value of one I was just talking about, has a value of 3907 in Gematria. The age difference between my youngest daughter and Shemaine is 6.66 years. There's your beast number. And the distance from Jupiter to all, on this is the day she was born, the distance from measuring from Jupiter to Saturn, Mars, Venus, Mercury, the Earth, and the Sun is the same number as the value of this verse. Where is it? Where the nuclear sun, and I opened the seal and saw and behold an angel of the sun, between her lips flowed the light of life, the sunlight. And she knelt over the earth and gave to the man the fires of power of the sun, and entered the hearts of men, and he took the power and made it a false sun, nuclear fusion in Fukushima in particular. All of these things that are built throughout the earth have a Sukhnet virus in it. They are ready to be detonated, and that will take out the entire earth if Fukushima is not bad enough. The reality then is that I was blinded to reading the numbers of my second daughter. Even though I thought she might not have been mine, I was going to look after her as a father anyhow, because she's still my child, irregardless of who the father is. As it turns out, then the numbers have to be that I am the father. Right? And even she thought, in a email that I got, or a text, or some sarcastic remark on one of the things I was doing, I only talked about the 2 daughters. I didn't talk about 3 daughters. And the remark was, you have 3 daughters. And of course it was coming from Ireland. So, how are we going for time?
5 minutes.
All right, so this is what it's all about. So, Armageddon is where, in ancient times, the Battle of Armageddon, I'll give you some references here, that say the Jews do not read the New Testament, but they do, in their correct mind, worship the Father. And although they don't know it's been Lucifer all along. Now, Israel is established by the Zionists, by Lord Rothschild, on the 2nd of November 1917, which is my daughter's birthday. That's the youngest daughter. And she was born in 1977. Now, together for Armageddon. So this is what they're trying to do. If they can kill off all the Jews that are the ones, irregardless of where their genetics are, they are the one that Yitzhak and Kaduri predicted that would be the ones that would recognise the Messiah, who was Jesus. He died 108 years old. He was the most renowned scholar in Israel. And he predicted Jesus Christ, right? So, as it turns out, we're running down to Armageddon of the Jews, right? Now, they have a very large, extensive nuclear development in Israel, and they're going to do them in with that.
Dimona.
That's why Kennedy was killed. He wanted to look into it, and David Ben Gurion, had him assassinated. That's what it's all about. So you either wake up, and I can leave at any time. They can't get me, and Ash can leave, and all my saints that we can go. Right, and the earth will be destroyed, and I'll start again with another one. Or we fix it.
As a matter of fact, in this, if you read on further from there, and the angel gave to me the book, and I opened the book, and I read therein what had always been, what was now, and what would come to pass. And I saw the Holocaust that would engulf the earth, and the great destruction that would drown all her people in oceans of blood. And I saw too the eternity of man and the endless forgiveness of the Almighty. The souls of men were as blank pages in the book, always ready for a new song to be there inscribed. So that is reincarnation, the new song to be inscribed on the blank pages of the book. Well, each one of us are a book when we are born to the earth. Blank pages, and we inscribe the new song of each life upon the pages of our book. And I lifted up my face to the 7 angels of the earthly mother and the 7 angels of the heavenly Father, and I felt my feet touching the holy brow of the earthly mother and my fingers touching the holy feet of the heavenly Father, and I uttered a hymn of thanksgiving. And these are the words of John. I thank thee, Heavenly Father, because thou hast put me at a source of running streams, at a living spring in a land of drought, watering an eternal garden of wonders, the tree of life, mystery of mysteries, growing everlasting branches for eternal planting, to sink their roots into the stream of life from an eternal source. And thou, Heavenly Father, protect their fruits with the angels of day and night, and with flames of eternal light, lighting every way. It goes on, it talks further about the judgment of, it challenges John. But again the voice spoke, and again my eyes were drawn away from the splendours of the realm of light. Heed thou, O man, you may walk on the right path, and walk in the presence of the angels. You may sing of the earthly mother by day, and of the heavenly Father by night, and through your being course the golden stream of the law. But would you leave your brothers to plunge through the gaping chasm of blood, as the pain-racked earth shudders and groans under her chains of stone? Can you drink from the cup of eternal life while your brothers die of thirst? And my heart was heavy with compassion, and I looked, and lo, there appeared a great wonder in heaven. Now, this is where he sees the Christ coming to the earth, and a woman clothed with the sun and moon under her feet, and upon her head a crown of 7 stars. This is all in the constellations. And I knew she was the source of running streams and the mother of the forests. And I stood upon the sand of the sea, and saw a beast rise up out of the sea, and from his nostrils wafted foul and loathsome air. And where he rose from the sea, the clear waters turned to slime, and his body was covered with black and steaming stone. And the woman clothed with the sun reached out her arms to the beast, and the beast drew near and embraced her. And lo, her skin of pearl withered beneath his foul breath, and her back was broken by his arms of crushing rock. And with tears of blood she sank into the pool of slime, and from the mouth of this beast there poured armies of men, brandishing swords and fighting one another. And they fought with a terrible anger, and they cut off their limbs and clawed out their own eyes until they fell. into the pit of slime, screaming in agony and pain. I'll leave it there. We have to stop this recording. We'll continue with this. This is a good subject.
Stop at the start again.
Okay.
Let's save that as 18.
Have to get a stick. Joel's. We'll have to wake up Joel so he can get this up now.
Now on the stick down.
Yes, give me a stick. I'll just knock on Joel's door. Joel, honey, it's 11 o'clock. We've got our show recorded up for today. Okay.
Plug that red one in there, no? Should be in the next place, I imagine.
All right.
Well, I'll stop this one and we'll start again.